Judge Isaacs, if you wouldn't mind scooting over here into the camera shot. And ladies and gentlemen, in Radio Land, we also have a feed here that you can watch us once we post it up there, probably Monday late, maybe Tuesday morning. And you might be able to get to see some of this. Otherwise, just sit back and relax and try and do a mental visual here. But I want to give you a little intro as to who our guest is. I have sitting to my left here, John Andrew Isaacs, Judge Andy Isaacs, born in Dallas, Texas in 1958. Judge Isaacs is the president of Morningstar Ranch Ministries, a Christian retreat ranch for underprivileged teens that does summer camps. Very nice, been out there many times. He does a fantastic job with him and his wife and his support group. Justice of the Peace, Precinct 3 in Milam County for 6 years, and he's married to his beautiful wife, Rita Kay, has 4 children and 5 grandkids. So he's got a lot larger history than that, but that's about all we can fit in the show for now. Judge Isaacs, welcome to the program. I'm so happy you could make it.
Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure. I called Judge Isaacs and asked him if he would be willing to come on the show and go over commentary and give us his legal perspective on certain questions that I teach, not questions that I teach, but certain topics that I teach when it comes to concealed carry. And during the course of those topics, there's a tendency to have some gray areas. In the classes that I teach, people go, well, what about this? Or what about that? And sometimes I've got a particular question. So I wrote down some questions here, and these questions are basically going to go anywhere on the map once we start talking. So I'm just going to start from the top, Judge, and I'm going to ask you a question. Because of the limited time, I may cut you off from time to time, no offense intended. All right, let's start off with this, Judge. What is the purpose of making Section Penal Code 46035 for places that used to be in Section 4603? And let me clarify that to you people in Radio Land. Penal Code 4603 basically states that if you have a concealed carry weapon, a license, it does not matter. You cannot go into these certain places that are listed under Penal Code 4603. My problem is they took out some of the ones that were in that penal code, made a whole new section, and said basically the same thing, but then they put little add-ons to it, which causes confusion. So once again, Penal Code 4603, if you got a license, forget it, you can't go in there. The ones they took out, they made it 46035. They said you can't go there either, but they got to put a sign up. If they don't put a sign up, you can go in. So, Judge, why do they do that? Why do they make that confusing? Because law enforcement has so much to learn, can't memorize it all, and sometimes it causes problems.
It was supposed to originally be put in there to make things more clear, but obviously it has made more things much more foggy. My original thought was they put it in there because the places that we have the most terrorist activity or criminal activity are in the places that you weren't allowed to carry with, or that you were not allowed to carry. And that's why I think they put it in there so that those places would have to post in order for you to know that you cannot carry there.
I want to make something clear, too. Sure. He's trying to decipher something that we have no clue who did it, who came up with the thought process, and how the heck it got there. I mean, I understand the process on how it gets done.
You know, when the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe is one who comes up with this, it makes it very difficult to know exactly what they mean.
All right, so bottom line is, I mean, you've got to understand these penal codes, and you've got to abide by them. I'm not just asking the question because it causes confusion. Because somebody going into a Penal Code 46035 location can go in at no problem if there's no sign. But if there is a sign, you can't. And somebody may think, oh, I don't really know that law. I didn't know that you had to just have a sign up. So they may say you're in trouble, and you're really not. So it causes confusion.
Right.
All right. That's a tough one. That takes a good while, so I'm going to just leave that one alone for now. Let's go to this one. How close to the spirit of the law does Penal Code 30-6 have to be? Let me explain to the radio people out there who doesn't know it. Penal Code 30-6 is this. The state said if you're licensed to carry concealed, that's fine. However, it gives the citizen who owns a piece of property or a business or whatever the ability to put up proper signage to keep you out, even if you've got it. So we're talking about the Penal Code 30-6 law. How much can you get away with is basically what I'm trying to say. The Penal Code 30-6, the spirit of the law. How tight is the spirit of the law?
You know, it's got to be obvious that any person would knowingly know that you can't go in there. If it's vague, if it's not easily seeable, if it's not easily accessible, then it doesn't fit within the spirit of the law, in my opinion. Now, you're going to have different opinions by different people, obviously different judges. But if you have a little bitty sign in the left-hand corner on way out to the outside that's not
micro printing.
Yeah, micro printing that says that's obviously does not apply.
Okay, I got a question.
Sure.
It goes with this, and I asked this my students in the class for common sense purposes. I said, look, the spirit of the law. The law says it's got to be in 1-inch block letters, okay, and contrasting colors. Well, what if you see somebody walk up to the sign with a measuring stick and it's only 7/8 of an inch tall? If we talking spirit of the law,
that's somebody looking to cause problems. That's all that is.
Okay,
if you see the sign and you because it's an 1/8 of an inch off, that's just somebody trying to pick it.
Let's go the other way then. What if there's a sign up, because the state specifically says for you to keep somebody out who's got a license, you got to do it a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the person who wants to keep you out puts up this big freaking sign, a 4x8 sign, and says absolutely, positively, no firearms permitted on this property, and that means you with a gun, circle, and a slash in it? That means nothing, does it?
It sounds like to me they really don't want any business.
That's true. That's true. But what I'm trying to get at is the law states this. I got to go through hoops to get my license. You got to go through hoops to keep me out. Right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. Let's move on. Okay. Here's one that is a personal one of mine. Section 418.184, firearms. How does one maintain their rights in times such as these if law enforcement is ignorant and doesn't care about the law? Let me clarify what I'm just saying. Back when Hurricane Katrina hit, and it caused all sorts of havoc and flooding. Well, they had SWAT teams and police and military going into high and dry places, taking people's guns because under the cause of security and safety. Well, we went nuts here in Texas. And Perry signs this into law, Section 418.184. It basically says this in a nutshell. If you have a natural disaster going on and law enforcement comes up to you, they can take the gun and the ammo at the moment if they feel safer about it. But if there's no reason to arrest you, or if it's not being used as evidence, they must give it back to you before they leave. I'm totally cool with that. But what do you do if somebody, one, doesn't know the law, and if they do know the law and they don't want to abide by it, what do you do?
This is a very difficult situation in that law enforcement needs to know the law. You're going to have 99% of them that will know it, that are decent, good people, and you're always going to have the 1%. Outside of a lawsuit, that's just about the length of what you want to do. If you have a dialogue with law enforcement where they know who you are, in a big city that's going to be very difficult, but in rural areas, you know the sheriff deputies, they know you, then you're probably not going to have any problems. It's when you want to be defiant and start talking about my rights and you've got a police officer with his hand on the gun, it can become a real testy instrument.
All right, so what you're saying is this. If I'm backed by the law here that we just read, and I have an ignorant officer come up to me because he doesn't know the law,
absolutely,
and I'm saying, hey man, no sir, no officer, no, look, check this out, read this, and he doesn't care, you're in a world of hurt because if you go any further, you're going to get tased, shot, or whatever.
That's exactly right. You don't pull on the tiger's ear, okay?
But you would agree, would you not agree? And
I'd say the officer would be wrong.
Okay.
But at the same time, we don't know the whole circumstances, so this is kind of a vague deal. I would say make sure that you know who this is before, and you're going to have to use your best judgment of what you're going to have to do at that
That's
time.
what it's going to come down to. I mean, basically, I tell people all the time for a traffic stop, courtesy, respect, and all that kind of stuff. If you got a problem, take it out into the courts. Don't do it there on the stop. I'm just concerned with this one because it's a life or death situation.
It very easily could be, and in some cases in Katrina, it was life and death.
That's right. So, I mean, I'm just a little touchy on that, and it must have been touchy about a lot of people because we got a new law about it.
That's exactly right, especially in Texas.
All right, let's move on. Reckless injury of an innocent third person. At what point does it become reckless?
This is so hard to know because each situation has to be taken as its own entity, as what had happened. Reckless, it really goes to intent. Because you're protecting somebody, you have to shoot someone. It goes through them, bounces off the concrete, and hits somebody else. Is that reckless? Common sense has to come in here, but when you've got Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe chasing this down to get you in court. It could be anything, but reckless really goes back to intent. Why was this done? You know, what was the deal? I'm shooting off a gun on the 4th of July and it comes down and hits somebody. That's reckless.
Let's give a couple other examples. Let's say, due to the lack of training or respect, a person grabs a firearm and they got a Glock 17 with, I think, 17 rounds in it, and they just spray all the bullets, miss the target, and you got 17 injured people.
Spray and pray is reckless. That's just the way it is. It's reckless.
Okay, we got another one that I would do. I think you touched on it partially. I'm being threatened. I decide it's necessary for me to use deadly force. I pull my handgun out and I make a clean shot, dead center mass. However, it bounces off a bone, comes back out of the individual, and hits a person standing by, maybe cuts their eye or whatever. I would assume, you know what happens when you assume. You would think, however, it wasn't reckless, but I still would be liable civilly. Would you not agree?
Yeah, that's true. You would still be liable for the pain and infliction that you cause the person, but that's not reckless. That happens. You know, you can take it to another level when you see somebody being raped and you come up and shoot the perpetrator and the bullet goes through them and hits the victim. You would still probably be held liable for the damage, but you snatched their life. So, I mean, you know, at some point, common sense comes in.
Well, that's not too common.
Yeah, that's right. You know, common sense works really good as long as you don't have a law degree.
I didn't say that. All right, let's go to our next one. In Penal Code 941, it states, it's got a statement here, in fresh pursuit. What is fresh pursuit? And how long does that go?
To me, that means immediate or within a really close period of time. You can't wait 3 or 4 days and say that's fresh pursuit.
Okay, let's clarify. You can't wait before you start pursuing.
Right.
But, okay, that's easy. But how far once you start, if you start pursuing immediately, how far in distance-wise would be a safe bet, do you think, so you don't look like you're hunting this person down?
It really depends on the offense. If they shot your cat, you're not going to be able to go a whole lot farther than your property. If they shot your cat and it was in your house, that's a wholly different deal. That you're probably going to be able to go quite a ways. Now, obviously, you cannot pursue them in New York City, but at the same time, you're allowed to go after them until you catch them, if it's reasonable. And what is reasonable? That's always
tough. That depends on whoever's looking at it.
That's exactly right.
That's why I say property line or first city block. You know?
Yeah, that's kind of the rule of thumb.
Okay, so there's no definite rule. It's just common sense. If you chase them too far and it's an offense that just can be taken care of some other way, don't chase them.
Right.
Okay? Don't escalate the situation. Let's go to another one here. Penal Code 9.42, deadly force to protect property. Judge, what is the difference from theft and criminal mischief in the nighttime as compared to the daytime?
Now, this is my opinion too. Daytime, you can see them. Generally, there's light. You can see. You know who it is, what they're doing. There are steps you can take in the daytime that you can't take at night. At night, you can't see. There's too much unknown. There's too much vagueness. You don't know when it's at night. You don't know how many perpetrators there are. At night, you don't know what they're actually up to. And night lends itself to more criminal element.
Okay, so if somebody's doing criminal mischief during the daytime and I go out there and I use force or I use reasonable and necessary force and for some reason it escalates to deadly force, that's okay. But to come in on a situation using deadly force for criminal mischief during the daytime, it's against basically the rules here.
Yeah, well, it's common sense. You know, if they're trying to steal gas from your tractor in the daytime, you could pretty much tell he's got a siphon hose and he's sucking on it, and, you know, the whole 9 yards. Try to steal gas from your tractor at night, it's a little bit different type deal now.
All right. Let's see. Okay, we're still doing good here. Let me ask another question. Another part of that Penal Code 942, paragraph 3A, cannot be protected by any other means. Let me give you an example. Something gets stolen, and you want to save it by using deadly force, and it comes into play here, cannot be protected by any other means. And the reason I ask this, let's say you've got a really expensive car in the driveway, and somebody breaks into it and starts stealing it, and you run out in your flip-flops and your boxer shorts with a high-capacity gun, and you say, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, criminal mischief at the nighttime. I can do this. I take the shot, kill the guy, but then it says cannot be recovered. I've got full coverage on my vehicle insurance to cover for stuff like that. Does that affect me?
Insurance is for after the fact. After the fact that you recovered, insurance may not be able to replace that car. Insurance may not be able to fix it. You might not ever see that car again, and they give you a lesser deal. It really depends on if it's your farm truck, that's a little bit different deal than if it's your Maserati.
Well, I'm not going to give anybody any idea of what I would do. I'll keep you guessing. Okay?
That's right. It's always going to be common sense. Never let yourself, and also don't make the decision based on emotion. You got to keep the emotion out of it if at all possible.
That's where the training comes in.
That's exactly right.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, if you want to have a comment or question to Judge Isaacs, the number here is 773-1400, 254-773-1400. We'll probably open up the lines in a few minutes, or you can call now and we'll put you on hold. If not, we'll continue on. But I want to ask another question to the judge here, Judge Andy Isaacs from Precinct 3, Milam County. Penal Code 9.44, use of a device to protect property. Why aren't guard dogs under this section?
Guard dogs fall under a different section because that is more of a protective issue. We've been using guard dogs for centuries now to protect property, and people are pretty much know you have to post a sign and things like that. Whereas if you wire a shotgun to a door,
that's a device.
That's a different ball game.
Is that one way to look at it though? If a dog's a biological unit as compared to a mechanical device, as the law says, device to protect property as compared to a guard dog?
I think that it has to be considered that way, although it's always going to be vague, and the guard dog could actually bite your 3-year-old, but the shotgun wired to a door has one purpose. A guard dog really is a deterrent. So
punji sticks are out too.
Yeah. Well, it may come a day when punji sticks are all right, but it's not here yet.
Okay. All right, Judge, moving on here. I've got a question here about the CHL insurance. You hear about this concealed carry insurance, where supposedly you have an accessible attorney ready to help you if you get into a situation where you use self-defense with a handgun. What are your thoughts on that?
My personal opinion is, if you're going to depend on Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe to get you out of jail, it's going to be a lot. Insurance is always an after-the-fact deal. So let's make sure that we're right on the front end, and then we'll be okay on the back end.
So bottom line is, you're spending $65 a month for insurance. Okay, it's maybe a backup, but bottom line is, avoid it.
That's right. People that live in rural areas are probably never going to need this. If you're living in Harlan, it might be a good idea to have it. So it really depends on where you live and what your circumstances are. If you're going to live in a very progressive, liberal atmosphere where you're living, there's a much more chance that you're going to need that insurance if you have to use your weapon. Whereas,
well, these are thoughts to ponder. The law that we can't ponder, the law we have to learn, but other things that are add-ons to that are things you can ponder and think about and decide what's best for you to help you out.